Guys, we did it. We built a race car, but it's not fast enough. So this is the end of the Nugget Project and the start of the Nugget Project 2.0, where we make this thing competitive. Alrighty, so for those of you just catching up, 4 years ago we bought this little car for grandma for 600 bucks. It was in pretty rough shape. I don't think the oil had been changed in years. The gearbox was dead. The bodywork was pretty good, but it was a pretty lackluster car. So if you watch the build series over the last 4 years, we built this car. We put our mate Rob from RG Customs put a national spec cage in it. We've got race seat. We've got better brakes. Still the same wheels actually, because they were not bad wheels on this thing. So we ran with those, but we've got the control tires. We painted it the Nugget blue, did a bit of a livery, although the livery still needs to be finished. Lots and lots of things. You can watch the video and see all the videos and see everything that we did to this car. Now, this car was built to spec for the XL X3 regulations. And the car's been fantastic. Honestly, it's been really good. We did it on a budget. I think all up, I spent about 13.5 grand on this car to get it from where we had it all the way up to being a fairly competitive car. But we didn't spend a lot of money. Like the engine basically just flushed it, put some new plugs and leads on it, put it in and ran it. It's got 220,000 K on it. It's not a race engine. And we had a lot of fun, you know. We got up to mid-pack at Phillip Island. You know, I think my best result in this car was about 11th. You know, I had like 30 odd cars. Pretty happy with that. You know, we had some really good fun. The car is so much fun to drive and it's been so reliable. I've had a couple of wheel bearings go on it and a brake pad failure. That's it. The car has been amazing. It's so good. It just beat the hell out of it every day. It loves it. However, the XL category is growing exponentially. There is so many XLs out there now, and there's professionals building these cars now, like our mate Adam at AMR Racing Motorsport. He does an excellent job and he builds the fastest cars in Victoria, no doubt. Like all the front runners, all AMR cars, and they're brilliant. Triple Eight Racing build them. Kelly Racing build them. Like we race against Mason Kelly, Todd Kelly's son. That car is a rocket ship and he's a very good driver. But you're seeing now there is a lot of very good XL builders out there, and unfortunately it means this car is starting to lack. It's still a great fun car to drive, and at tracks like the Island where it's sort of more momentum, I'm still doing okay, but at tracks like Winton where you have to have the car tuned perfectly and the engine has to be sort of top notch, I just can't keep up. The last race at Winton, we got left for dead and it was really disheartening. Race weekends are not cheap. If you haven't done any racing, even budget racing like this, you'll still spend 1,200 to 1.5 grand for a race weekend. It's a lot of money, you know. It's well over a week's wage to go racing. And I was starting to think, you know, it's me, I'm not that good a driver, and it's true, I need a lot more seat time. But then a few weeks after the Winton round, we went to over to WA and raced with our mate Brent Peters from Luxe Performance in his car. Now his car is much more dialed. It still doesn't have a race engine, but it's a much more dialed car. And I was doing well. I was getting really good lap times. We came 6th overall, which I'm absolutely stoked about. It's my best result in a car to date. And the lap times are kind of indicative, showing that it's not just me, it's a bit of the car. Let me just quickly run over these figures and don't skip forward. This all leads into this next part of the Nugget Project. Okay, so I've got some figures in front of me here. Now, as I mentioned, I do need to get better at driving. Everybody does. There's no such thing as a perfect driver. You're always improving, and I do improve. Every time I go to the track, I get faster. I have not been to a track yet where I have not had a PB, so this is good. So now, at my last race at Winton in the Nug, the one where we didn't do so well, my best lap was a 1:45.6, so a minute 45.6 seconds. The best lap for the race, so that's like the fastest guy in that race, was 1:41.38. So I was 4.31 seconds slower than the fastest guy there. It's fairly substantial. Per lap, that is. So my last race at Phillip Island in this car, my best lap was 2 minutes, 5.3 seconds, so 2:05.3. The best lap for the race that day was a 1:59.6. So I was 5.7 seconds slower per lap than the fastest guy there. Now this isn't obviously the whole pack, this is the fastest guy, so he's a freak. I'm never gonna catch him, but using this as an example. Now, when we went over to WA and raced at Wanneroo in the Luxe car, my best lap for the day was 113.9. The best lap of the entire weekend was 112.5. So I was only 1.48 seconds slower than the fastest time of the weekend. That's pretty good. And on a side note, I was 1.99 seconds off the lap record in an XL. Now, bearing in mind that I learned how to drive that car, it's a four-door, it feels a little bit different. I learned how to drive that car the day before and I learned the track the day before, and I was still that much quicker. Now, a lot of you who know the tracks will know that Wanneroo is not a big track. But even if you double that up, so in my little spiel here, so if you double the time to sort of make it closer to the length of Phillip Island, it kind of equates that I'm only 2.9 seconds slower than the leader if we sort of did the times that way. Whereas in this car, I'm, where are we? Phillip Island, 5.7 seconds. So, and the same with Winton, you know, if we sort of equate that, I'm about 2 seconds off the leader in the Luxe car if we sort of equate the times, whereas in reality, I was 4.3 seconds. So I'm halving my gap in Brent's car. And it really just shows that I can drive okay, which made me feel a lot better. It also shows this car is not up to scratch. Okay, so we need to make this car faster. And I'm gonna do it in like a 3-step process. It may not be in this order, we'll see. Now, doing all this is gonna cost money. And luckily I'm being helped out by some amazing people and I'm helping them out, they're helping me out, and we're doing this to still try and keep it budget for me. I don't have a lot of money. I'm a photographer and videographer. I don't make a lot of cash. So, step 1, we need the new control suspension. I'm still running the old MCAs. Now, I'm not an overly big fan of Supershock as a company because they just don't answer their phone, they don't answer their emails, and this whole thing has been a bit of a debacle, but they are obviously pretty quick in an XL. So that is step 1. They're not cheap, but we're gonna order them in soon. I'm getting a bit of money coming in, and that'll be the first step. Number 2, lose weight. This little guy is a bit of a fatty. Not a lot, but if I fill it up, go out, do a run, come back in, like a full race run, come back in, I'm still about 20 kilos overweight, and that's quite a lot. My fuel gauge is dodgy, and I don't trust going out without a lot of fuel in the car because these things can surge if you don't have enough fuel in them. You know, the fuel sloshes away from the pickup, and then you get fuel surge and all sorts of stuff. It's not good. So I'd rather run quite a bit of fuel in the car. There is things I can lose weight on though, and we'll talk about that in a minute with some of the parts I've got and some of the parts that are coming. Last step is power. More power, baby. So, this engine has 220,000 Ks on it. It is just a stock engine that came in the car. It's had a pretty hard life. It actually runs really well, but I can tell I don't have the power. When I come out of the corners at Winton, you know, I can be on a good line. I can actually catch up to a lot of these guys coming through the corner, be right on their bumper. And then when we come out the corner, it is purely a drag race and they just walk away from me. I just don't have the power. Now these things from factory had just shy of 100 horsepower. It's not a lot. And then over time, I'd love to dyno this thing before we do a new engine in it, but I just don't want to spend the money. You know, it's going to cost me $400 or $500 to dyno it, just to get you a figure. I'd probably guess this thing is well under 80 horsepower now. Now, if you think we've got guys in the field who are not only running a new engine, a refreshed engine, but you know, slightly fettled with a few other little bits, they might be up around 110 horsepower, something like that. If I'm running 80 horsepower, I got no hope. There's no way I am catching them in a drag race. So, more power is needed. And the way we're going to do that is with what's on the floor right here. This little guy is the wrecker engine I picked up a few episodes ago, if you guys watched the series. So I went to the wreckers and I pulled out some drive shafts out of this car because I needed some for the Nug. And when I looked at the odometer, this thing had like 114,000 K in it, which for an XL is not a lot. And it looked, you know, the engine's a bit dirty, but the car looked clean, everything looked good. And so I checked on pricing, and this thing was like, I think $200. And then I think with the gearbox, I paid about $280 for the engine and the gearbox. So this is a full setup ready to go. And I purely bought this as a spare, because I'm like, you know, it's low Ks. if that engine goes pop, I'll just throw this one straight in and go racing. However, I've now changed my plan. Because I need more power, this is going to be our new race engine. So I can keep the Nug running, I can still go do track days and have fun with my mates, but in the meantime, I'm going to build this up to be a race engine. If we send this engine off to a full engine builder, I'm not joking here, it costs between $8,000 to $10,000 to build an XL engine into a race engine. And you're saying, but Matt, it's a control category. You're not allowed to spend that much money. How can they do that? You know, it's all regulated. Well, you can. Now, I just did a video at Dandy Engines for Street Machine, who I shoot for, and seeing the processes, it doesn't matter whether you're working with a Lamborghini engine or an XL engine. And the process is the same. They still do line honing, they do boring, they basically make the engines perfect, regardless of whether it is a Lamborghini engine or an XL engine. The processes are still the same, and they're very expensive because it takes an expert's time to do it all. The machinery they use is like $500,000 robots to do it. It's a very expensive process. Now, I can't justify that much money. There's no freaking way. The good news is there's a lot of very cool people in the XL world, and they've reached out to me and said, hey, this is what you can do to make a budget race engine, which is exactly what we're going to do. Now, the bottom end of these things really doesn't need that. There's not much you can do. It doesn't really need to be touched. There's one of the caps on the conrod can snap, and you can do a support bracket on that, which AMR sell, and I'll probably do that. But if you go and put new bearings in the bottom end of this thing, it actually slows them down because the bottom end bearings take a long time to wear in. So there's no point doing that. You're just zapping horsepower for no reason. So as long as the bottom end bearings aren't shagged, we just leave them. Clean it all up. Now, in the rest of the bottom end is pretty much, give it a bit of a hone, Donnybrush hone, and then use some new rings and just get it all sort of seated and fresh and redo all the seals. So I'm going to redo all the gaskets and the seals and make sure it doesn't leak and it's all happy. The head is where the power's at. So there's a lot of guys there's certain heads that have cast markings that are slightly better flow. I haven't found any at the wreckers. These are guys that are looking for that, 0.1% to go faster. I'm not going to go around all the wreckers and try and find all these heads and all that. I'm happy with this head. I think it'll be fine. But the head is where the power's at. So I'm going to take this head off and I'm going to take it down to our mates at Dandy Engines. They offered to do the head for me. So I'll take them the regulations from Motorsport Australia and they will give it a full rebuild for me. So, reseat all the valves and just get it all basically fresh. And we can't port and polish or any of that sort of stuff, but it will be like a brand new head from the factory, which would be fantastic. And that'll give us the best chance to get good power to this thing. And the rest of it, we're going to clean everything up. I'm going to get the injectors properly cleaned. Basically, we're going to make this engine as new as possible on a budget. And that's pretty much where we go. And also we're going to do fuel pressure regulator, all that sort of stuff, just to give us the best chance. And also, I can't wait. I'm going to clean the hell out of this thing. I'm going to sandblast all the little components. We're going to paint everything. It is going to look magnifico. Alrighty, you're sticking with me. Sorry, it's a very talky episode, but I just kind of need to give you guys a rundown of how we're going to make this car faster and also introduce one of our new sponsors, Raceworks. So Raceworks are absolute legends. I've loved their stuff for many, many years. If I had my way, I would have just beautiful AN fittings all through all my cars and life would be glorious. Unfortunately, with the XL, we can't do a lot of that stuff. We can do some, which I'll show you in a minute. But maybe we'll get some Raceworks stuff in the saw and redo all the intercooler piping on that. It'd be schmick. But anyway, Raceworks have come aboard to support us and support my racing, which I'm ever grateful for. I'm just stoked. I'm sorry, I'm a bit lost for words. Like it's so good to have a brand like that on board. We've got some great supporters, Redline Oils, Luxe Performance help us out so much, and we've got some cool parts from Luxe as well. Anyway, stop doing the ramble. Let's show you some parts. I've got my GoPro here, so we can do a bit of close-up stuff with what we've got. So here we've got a bunch of Raceworks fittings. Now, I said we can't do a lot of stuff, but we can. Oh, I'm missing things. Hang on. Over here. So we have our new Raceworks fuel pressure regulator, which will go in the XL. Very excited about that. And our MVP fuel pressure gauge. And then also a bunch of the fittings I need to make that work in the car, which is very cool. Also, these ones here are for our oil catch cans. So the oil catch can in there works, but it's all eBay and 3D printed stuff. It's freaking terrible. So proper Raceworks fittings, it's all gonna look so good in there. I'm very excited. Along with that, for our fuel pressure regulator, we've got our hoses. So these are really nice quality Raceworks fuel lines. And then we've also got some tools from Raceworks, and this is very exciting. So we got some vice clamps. So these are alloy vice clamps for doing AN fittings. That's very exciting. And I've got a vice I'm gonna put on this bench, which would be great. And then we've got, we'll have a look at those bits in a minute. We've got some Denso spark plugs. The guys supply Denso stuff, so that'd be great. Have some brand new Iridium spark plugs in there. But these things are very exciting. So these are tools for the workshop, which I'll have forever. And honestly, you can never go wrong with some good tools. Look at these beautiful things. So these are thread identification kits. So this is an MPT thread identification kit. So you've got the male thread that side, and then you've got the female thread that side. So if you're working on an engine and you're not too sure, you know, what size goes in what fitting with your oil lines or anything like that, you can just grab your thread identifier, screw it in, it'll tell you, and then you can order it online, or you can go down to Autobarn or whatever and go and get the parts. So very excited. So that's an MPT kit, which is kind of oil fittings, fuel lines, things like that. And then this guy is a metric thread kit. So, you know, like that one's an M10 by 1.25. So all the different metric threads there. Once again, very cool kit and something that I will use a lot. Really excited to have that in my garage, in my collection. And then the last one, this is a beautiful piece, is a bead roller. So when you're working with intake piping or any sort of alloy piping, you need to roll a bead on it, especially with boosted cars. So for the Sora, I'm going to use this on all the Sora piping. Very excited because I don't have any beads on it, and I know it's going to come back and bite me. You can roll a bead around the outside of that pipe, put your silicone joiner over, clamp it, and it'll just stay put. So this is a beautifully made thing too. I mean, look at it. It's gorgeous, all billet alloy. So that clamps in your vise, and you put your pipe in there, and then you just crank the handle, and that'll roll a beautiful bead onto our piping. So that is such a cool tool to have, and I'm very excited to have that. I didn't expect them to send that, and I'm eternally grateful to have something like that in my garage, in my workshop, and that'll, you know, I'll look after that. That'll stay in its case, and I'll have that forever. So we will do a video on doing bead rolling and changing the fittings on the saw, on the water to air intercooler, and making that all nice and pretty. So yes, beautiful thing. Thank you so much, Raceworks. And the last couple of bits is we got new breathers for the oil catch cans. We've got another one of them coming, and we do have a new air filter from BMC. So very excited. The one I've got in there is this very small K&N tiny thing. I stole the big one for the Sora. So we've got a nice new one coming for that, which will go in our airbox, and a nice cleaning kit for that. This is part of making our car lighter. So these beautiful things are aluminium seat rails, and they are so light. They weigh nothing, but they are super, super duper strong. At the moment in there, I just got basically the cheapest budget seat rails I could get that worked, and they've been great, but they weigh a lot. These will probably drop at least a kilo out of the car. We'll try to weigh them when we put them in, but that is fantastic. So that'll make a big difference. There's little things like this. It's the little 1%ers that are gonna make this car fantastic. And just look at them. They're so beautiful. I love them. So thank you so much, Raceworks, for sending that stuff through. It's going to make a huge difference for this build. Everything's just going to be that little, you know, it's all these little 1%ers. It's going to make this car just perfect. Now, the other thing I've got here is this guy. So this is a Nugget duct from Luxe Performance. So our mate Brent sent this over. Thank you, Brent. You are just a gentleman and a scholar, one of the nicest guys in the race industry. This will go in our passenger window. Now, this isn't a performance thing. This is a Matt doesn't want to dive heat exhaustion thing. So it gets really hot in this car. And I know like other bigger race cars get a lot hotter with bigger engines, but it still gets really hot. And sometimes we're sitting on the dummy grid for half an hour, 40 minutes, all strapped in with all our gear. And then out on the track, you're working hard and you just cook. So This guy, we can do a polycarbonate insert in the passenger window, and then this guy will go in and that'll funnel some air in, and we're gonna do a nice tube setup, and it's gonna blow cold air and just circulate the air in the cabin. We don't wanna run windows down, it slows us down, but something like this will not slow us down and keep us nice and cool. So thank you so much, Brent, for sending that over. You are a legend. So there we have it. We've got some an amazing new sponsor. We've got some great new parts. We've got a new engine, so there's lots happening. This was a very boring, a very talky episode. I'm very sorry. It's can't all be excitement, but we just need to get all that information out of the way so we can get stuck into this car. So coming up, we've got, next episode, we're gonna tear down this engine, get the head off to Danny Engines, because they're very busy. It's gonna take a few months for them to do it, as they're helping me out with that. So while that's all away being fixed up, we can get stuck into the car. So we're gonna make it lighter. We're gonna get this new control suspension, and we're gonna make it look prettier as well. We finally got the vinyl cutter sitting on the bench a couple of meters from the car, so we can cut the vinyl, weed it out, straight on the car, and finally make this thing look like a proper race car. And we've got our sexy new wheels coming, which I'm very excited about because they're such cool wheels. So this thing will look as cool as an XL can look. I'm very excited about all that. So thanks for sticking around for all this. I'm really pumped to go into this next evolution of the Nugget Project, where we finally got our own workshop. I don't know how long we're gonna be here. We could be here 2 years, we could leave in a few weeks, who knows, but we'll take advantage of this space while we've got it. So yeah, if you haven't already, please, subscribe and like and comment and all that crap. And I'm also doing stuff on TikTok now. It's horrible. The people on there are horrible. It's not a nice platform, but it's cool to just do little update videos of things that's happening. So it's just at the Nugget Project or whatever on TikTok. Have a look on there. I'm disabling comments most of the time because it's just a cesspool of lower human life forms. It's disgusting. But anyway, have a look on that anyway. And we'll see you in the next episode where we'll tear this engine down. Thanks for watching.